Hello guys, it's John with Sagittario doing another part of the Reimagining Beyblade Burst series. This is part 12, and this will be going over the Metal Fight remakes. As per usual, this is just explaining what I would do for remakes if I was in charge of, making these. And yeah, it's just a fun way to kind of reimagine them. Unfortunately, as I said before, I do not have either the funds or talent to commission art or model these and make these combos properly, so explaining what the parts have we'll have to do. So anyway, there's actually quite a bit here. I will kind of be breaking this up into 3 different sections. There will be the Metal Fight phase, like the Season 1 ones, where I will kind of talk about any remakes I feel like need to be altered, and then I'll get into some of the new ones I would add. Then, yeah, we'll do that for Metal Fight Explosion as well, but then afterwards I will also be doing 4D, a full 4D line. That said, I'm not doing pre-hybrid reel because they always just ignore anything that came before the anime. And I'm also skipping 0G because I think Takaratomi just wants to bury that at this point, so I'm not covering it. So with that said, I've also made... There's a few parts in here, not a ton, but there are a few parts for some of these remakes that were things that I have already conceptualized from previous parts, so there is some context missing if you didn't watch those, but I'll explain them anyway, so it shouldn't be too hard to follow along with if you haven't watched those. But anyway, let's just go ahead and get into the actual important stuff. So first up, we have the Metal Fight Season 1 remakes. So for these, I'm just kind of sticking to what was kind of available at the time, kind of GT era. I'm also sticking to core discs and frames for all of these, for the discs. But aside from that, yeah, this is around GT era. So it's fairly simple, nothing too crazy to explain here. Let's just get into some of the alterations, and then we'll get into some of the new bays that I would make. First up, we have Lightning L-Drago 10 Glaive Zephyr Dash. I'm just swapping out Reach for Glaive here. Basically, I'm using Glaive as sort of the benchmark frame. Any track that does not have a real gimmick on it, I am just going to give Glaive because it kind of represents those little notches on the sides of tracks. So I figure, it's a sensible enough remake, so there's a few more like this. We'll be going over them as we get to them, but this is the first of the kind. Next up, we have Flame Sagittario 8-Angle Claw. So this one doesn't have a frame. The parts themselves are fine. I think Claw obviously makes the most sense. However, it is 4-sided, unlike the regular Claw from Metal Fight, which was 3-sided, so I decided Angle is a good enough replacement. Yeah, by the way, also, as per usual, yeah, the color schemes here are going to be, not the most sensible looking, but again, I'm just working with what I got, so is what it is. But yeah, Angle was sort of made to represent those 3 sides that it initially had, so that's why I opted to go with that one over just Glaive or whatever else I could have chosen. Next up, we have Rock Leone 0 Glaive Massive. As I said before, it just makes sense to add the frames in here, and Glaive just works as kind of a neutral frame. So another fairly simple one right there. Now we have Earth Eagle 2 Glaive Yielding, yet again, just throwing Glaive on. I know it's not that interesting to use Glaive multiple times, but in my opinion, it's better than just not giving them frames at all. So, yep, there it is. Another just very, very simple one. Now we have Burn Phoenix 4 Glaive Wedge. So for this one, I actually am swapping out the disc entirely. Yell's fine, but I want consistency here, so we are just going with 4 Glaive. I think 4 works pretty well for Phoenix, and then again, Glaive, since it's a neutral track, and then yeah, Wedge also works perfectly fine. So there we go. There's the bay. Again, fairly standard, so nothing too dynamic about this one. Alright, now we actually have our first new bay. So, while they were technically more Bakugan Shoot remakes, I was debating on whether how many I should add here, because with those, it was a lot of the times, like, you had, like 10 remakes for Season 1 of Bakugan Shoot, but like half of those were just, like, like 2 Dragoons, 2 Dronzers, so like a lot of them just were repeating motifs, so Here, I was wondering what to do, but I figured, yeah, let's just make like 10 of them. Why not? So I'll add some extras in. So, first one here, we got Dark Wolf, 7 under Fusion Dash. So, Dark Wolf, I think, was fairly deserving of a remake. Probably not the first choice, but it was definitely, I would say, a good one to do. Wolf, important enough, I would say. 7, this was a good stamina disc, so I think that makes sense. And then also under, just, again, it's 4-sided, so kind of works for downforce 145. Also, the whole thing with downforce 145 was like, it was meant to like cut through the air to keep the bait upright. Is it the greatest gimmick? Not really, but it's a thing I could do. So, or it's a thing that exists, so I figure 7 under is like the best you could do. Now, obviously Flugel exists, and that driver would have worked perfectly, but the tip would be wrong, and that bothers me. Fusion Dash works perfectly, so if we had a Flugel Fusion hybrid, that would have been great, and solves all of our problems, but we don't, so had to do what we had to do, had to make a cut somewhere. Do we choose Flugel and just choose like a neutral disc and frame? Or do we try to make it thematically sensible, but kind of losing that proper shape to the, well, that represents the track, but I chose this way, so it is what it is. Again, kind of awkward with that, but I think this works well enough for a Dark Wolf remake. Now we have Dark Bull, 00 Dagger, Cycle. Okay. This one, probably a little bit easier to explain. Dark Bull, this one obviously should have had a remake. Yeah, come on. I know it is a little bit awkward to have Dark twice, but I think this one is... I think Wolf and Bull both kind of deserve that spot. I didn't want to repeat them, but I figure these make sense. There's another one that repeats, which, again, I'll explain in a minute once we're past this one, but as far as the parts go, 00 just kind of felt right for Bull. I mean, it's kind of a bulkier bay, so I figure, why not? Dagger, yeah, Dagger, just kind of the whole two-sided thing. I mean, you got like the two sides sticking out, like Horn 145, it makes sense. However, to add on to that, Cycle. So Cycle, this actually works perfectly. Unlike the whole Flugel issue and Fusion issue that we had with Wolf, this does not apply here because we have Semi-Defense, which works very well with Cycle's tip here, so they're very similar. But also, it's kind of similar to Horn 145. So you kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Also, you have Dagger, which kind of helps add on to the whole two-sided theme. While, yes, it doesn't free spin, the track doesn't, I mean, it's close enough, so I actually think this is a very, very solid Bull remake combo. Really should have done this, honestly, so it is what it is, but yeah, here's my Bull remake. Now we have Flame Libra 10 Cross Gyro. Alright. So this is the other one I was talking about with repeating metal wheels. Yeah, Flame, I know we used it for Sagittario already. Well, that one already exists, but for this one, I feel like Flame Libra was just kind of relatively important, but more importantly is that it was very big in Season 2, so I think it deserves a remake. 10, solid, stamina type of disc, so I felt like it was sensible here. Cross, there's really nothing great for T125, so I figure 4-sided, I mean, it's good enough. It's something, right? So I figure it was better than nothing, so I did 10 cross. And then, yeah, Gyro, not the exact shape you want, but it has the same idea as ES, so I figure, again, well, it's not perfect, but it gets the job done, so another remake that's a little bit awkward, but again, a lot of these remakes are just trying to replicate them to the best of their ability, and even if they're a little bit awkward sometimes, it is what it is. This combo, I think, is, well, it's close enough. Alright, now we have Poison Serpent, 6 turn, survive. Alright, did Poison Serpent need a remake? Honestly, this one you probably could live without. It's probably like the least necessary of the bunch. However, it's one I could see getting a remake, and I also just like Poison Serpent a lot. It was pretty much my favorite Metal Fight Bay. So I might be a little bit biased in including this one, but it's not the worst offender, so I mean, I could have picked, like, I don't know, Rock Orso, so, I mean, better than that. Anyway, part-wise, 6, I just feel like the way 6 looks just works with the Serpent theme. Maybe that's just me, but I felt like it worked. Okay, turn, this one's a little bit weird, so SW-145 is a difficult track to try and replicate. I could have done something like Vortex or Flow, but even then it doesn't look quite right. I figure in this case I'll just go with the gimmick over the appearance. And turn, I mean, it's like Jagged, it kind of works with Poison well enough. I figure, again, I had to take a bit of a liberty here, but it's, again, probably the best we're going to get. And you at least have the gimmick intact, so it's something. Survive, I mean, it just works for SD, so yeah, Survive, I think that one was a pretty sensible choice, but yeah. So that's it for the Metal Fight remakes, like the Season 1 ones anyway, so we'll go ahead and move on to Metal Fight Explosion. Alright, now we're on to the Metal Fight Explosion remake. So, this is kind of like sparking. Honestly, you could probably just get into DB era at this point, just put in whatever parts, so. Anyway, the main thing here is that yes, the layers now separate, unlike the original ones. I could have probably just added that in, but I didn't feel it was as necessary with those, so here it does feel a bit more necessary, so that does exist now, as these remakes obviously already do. Aside from that, it's fairly similar to what we had before, just going over, some bases I feel like needed some changing, but also making some new ones as we go, so fairly straightforward for these, so let's just get into the actual stuff. So our first bay is Galaxy Pegasus 5 Ignite Eradicate Dash. Okay. So I am keeping the layers the same, but also the 5 disc. So what is Ignite? What is Eradicate Dash? Okay, so Ignite, this was the disc I gave to Legend Spriggan back in part 2. Basically, it's similar to Glaive, where it's pretty round, has like the 2 points, but it's closer to Dagger with those 2 points sticking out further. Glaive worked very well as a Wing 145, stand-in. However, I was using Glaive for the other things, which, yeah, I feel like it works well as a neutral frame, so I wanted to do something different, and this frame that I made back then, I think, just does the job, just to differentiate it a bit. As far as Eradicate Dash, I gave this to Wretched Death Scyther, which was my DB version of Death Scyther in part 6. Basically, it's Jolt, but right spin. It's a proper R2F. It's not like Explosion, where, like the free spinning parts. No, it's just a proper R2F. That's all there is to it, so just kind of a couple smaller things here just to make this remake actually, feel just a little bit more sensible. Next up, we have Meteo L-Drago 7 Necro Spiral Dash. Okay. So, basically, it's the same bay, but with a soft frame. So what is Necro? This is the frame I gave to Drain Fafnir in part 2. It's like a smoother Vortex, like a little bit smoother, but also it's made for left spin. Just better LW105 representation. Again, just a slight sort of, consistency upgrade that I felt was, helpful since I had already imagined up the part back then. Now we have Gravity Perseus, 00 Bump Yielding Dash. I made this into a dash driver because why not? And that's literally it. I just thought it was a nice extra upgrade because at this point I think most things could just be dash drivers. It doesn't matter all that much anymore. Now we have probably the most difficult one in this entire video. Kerbecs, Paradox, Wave Dash. Okay. Why? What is this? What is this? No. Paradox technically doesn't work very well here, but the gimmick is there, which I think, I mean, look, it's not going to be great either way. What's better, this tiny frame or like an actual disc? I don't know, I'm going to take this one. Also, Mobius, the shape is there for DS, but like, look, at the same time, it's not great. Doesn't get the idea across very well. Wave Dash also is pretty far from perfect, but there's really nothing that does work for DS. I don't know, this just, I mean, it's free spin, it's POM. I don't really like Mobius on Kerbecs. I think Wave Dash, it's not perfect either, but it's just a better overall fit in my opinion. So we're going to go with this. And does this even, I don't even know if this actually will fit in properly. Okay, it does, nice. But yeah, this is what we're going with, and I might try to remodel this layer to make the other Paradox mode work with it. Hell, maybe even give a special, like, version of Paradox. It's like 3-sided. That's going above and beyond, but again, this needed to be far better than what it was. This was a joke of a remake, and I think that they needed to do a way better job here. Kerbecs got shafted bad. These parts also, these 3 little pieces, like the black plastic, those should not have been modeled on. They don't look good. So, again, I think there needed to be a lot of work done on this layer, or this whole bay. It just wasn't, and I try to do that here again. Paradox a little bit awkward, Wave Dash also awkward, but it should be much better than what we actually got. And now we get to the brand new bays. So first up here we have Rock Giraffe, 0, Angle, Massive. Actually, Massive Dash, my bad. So, anyway. So, Rock Giraffe, I think, was fairly deserving of a remake. It was one of the more prevalent bays that's not part of, like, the maximum system or main team, or just L-Drago. So, you know what? Why not? You know, I think it's deserving of one. Just a solid bay to have, anyway. 0, I mean, I think 0 just works for a bay like this, honestly. And then Angle, this is a bit of a weird one, so there's really no good way to do R145, but I figure this is as close as we're going to get, so I guess make it the same color and just call it a day. There's no frame that replicates that at all, so there's really nothing you can do. Massive, I mean, like wide ball, massive, close enough. I mean, they used Massive for Rock Leone, which also had wide ball, so it's a pretty sensible one to use following up that. So, yeah, this is just a remake that, it's not the craziest, but I just think it would have been one that's just nice to have. Again, it was prevalent enough, I would say, so it probably deserved one. Alright, now we have Flame Byxis, 8- expand, high yielding dash. So, yeah, anyway. Flame Byxis, I mean, this one, obviously, I think, you know, if we were to get a couple more remakes, this one for sure would be in. 8-, I honestly just felt like it was a decent choice here, nothing really in particular about it. Expand, this is a larger frame, but I feel like that kind of works with 230, kind of sticks out a little bit more, a little bit wider than a normal trank, I guess, and then also it's very smooth. Figured Expand was good for that. And then, well, they used Yielding as a kind of WD replacement, so I figure Yielding Dash makes sense, but also, you know, it's tall, so high Yielding Dash. You know, it's a, yeah, I mean, it's a new variant, that's fine, I guess. I feel like a high Yielding Dash is the only way we're really going to get away with any of these, like, 230 WD type bays, so closest we're getting, and again, I think it's a fine enough combo for what Flame Byxis is. Now we have Killer Beafowl, 13, Flow, Never. Alright. Killer Beafowl, another one that I would say, I mean, if we had a lot of remakes, this one would probably be one that gets remade. It's another, you know, maximum series bay. 13, it just fits the vibe of this bay. That's all there is to it. Flow. This was a hard choice, because it doesn't have the same flip gimmick as UW145 does, so that's unfortunate. However, I just like the flow frame works very well. I could see it being in like the same color as this, and it just looked great, I think, on a Killer Beafowl remake. And I looked at, you know, things like a lift, which that would be horrible, and turn would be okay. I just don't think it really fits the vibe of this bay at all, so it was between turn and flow, but, well, I already used turn on Poison Serpent, and, you know, decided to go with that there, and I just feel like, you know what, we'll use flow on this one. Never, I mean, it's not really the best EWD representation, but at the same time, nothing else really is, so, well, this is as close as we're going to get, so I think Never is a pretty solid choice as a EWD replacement, since, again, there's just nothing else really that is anywhere near it, so, yeah, kind of a weird remake, but again, just one that I feel like would work well enough overall. Now we have Screw Capricorne, 6, Glaive, Iron Dash. Alright. Screw Capricorne, does this really deserve to be here? Honestly, no. However, it is a maximum series bay, and let's just say they pulled, like, if they planned multiple, you know, Metal Fight Explosion bays from the start, like 10 like I have here, I feel like there's a good chance things like Rock Giraffe, something like that would probably be pushed back, I think, to the first set, and how Kerbecs would be saved for another set, maybe a whole maximum series set. That's something they could have done. Had they done that, I think Screw Capricorne could have for sure happened, and would have been cool. I mean, I think the other 4 maximum series bays are pretty likely, so maybe they wouldn't leave out the 5th one, so I have to include it anyway. 6, I don't know, I just thought 6 worked here. It doesn't have much of a purpose, honestly. Glaive, again, it's just the neutral track thing that I used here, so it works. And then Iron Dash, obviously, I mean, MF. Oh, yeah, I mean, that was an obvious choice, so pretty standard combo. Outside of that, the reasoning is a little bit questionable, but yeah, this one's not too hard to make with, Iron already existing. Just want to make it a Dash version, because that should have happened at some point during Burst. And now we have Basalt Horogium, 00 Glaive Yielding. This one, I don't think there's a whole lot of explain here. Oh, actually, Yielding Dash. I misread again. I think it's the second time I've done this for Yielding. Anyway, Yielding Dash. My bad. So, Basalt Horogium, this one, I think, if we got more remakes, again, very likely another Maximum Series Bay as well. 00, I mean, this is just the heaviest core disc, so I don't see why that wouldn't be used for the heaviest bay at the time. Glaive is just Glaive, works as the neutral track frame replacement. Yielding, yeah, I mean, it's a WD replacement, so very simple remake. Again, the reasoning here I think is pretty obvious as well, so just another standard one, honestly, nothing too crazy here. And now we're on the final part of the video, the 4D bays. So, we never did get 4D remakes, so I decided, let's just make every Legend bay. There's technically 11 of them, so 11 bays to make. That's something. So the layers themselves, I am going to kind of make an evolved version of what we had in Metal Fight Explosion. Those layers were all 2 parts. These, they'll work on a similar system where you could pop out the sort of clear wheel face piece is one thing. Then you have the metal wheel. These will be able to be taken apart. They will work the exact same as these actual 4D wheels. So, something like Big Bang here would have 3 parts. You have the core underneath, the metal frame, and PC frame. With the burst base being larger, I imagine this would be easier to do because you have more surface area to work with, so cores would not be in danger of being too small. And with that, there are 2 oddballs we will get to. Well, I'll explain those when we get to them. Other than that, I'm just not going to go over each and every layer. Just assume, yep, it's just how these, bays worked with the, the metal wheels and stuff, just in layer form. But yeah, aside from that, there will be one extra thing to note here. Again, not going to be going over this with every bay, just stating this now. All of these are only going to be compatible with the DB discs. It's kind of unfortunate, but at the same time, at this point, I feel like these bays should just be DB compatible. It makes sense to have these bays be in the proper system that they'd be, kind of being released alongside, and by the time we got 40 remakes, I'd imagine it'd be during DB and BU, so yeah, so I decided let's just make them all use DB discs and be DB compatible. It makes the most sense. So that out of the way, let's just go ahead and get into all of the remakes. First up, we got Big Bang Pegasis, Wing Dash Ultimate Reboot Dash. This is not a Dash version, but pretend it is. It's a closer color. Anyway, so yeah. This one, fairly self-explanatory. The layer would just be like this. Again, as I've already explained, it'd just be multiple parts and stuff. Wing Dash, I just personally felt like it worked well thematically with this bay. So you know what, let's just go with it. Ultimate Reboot Dash, it's literally just FD. It's just Final Drive again. Like, almost the same, so obviously this was going to be the most sensible choice. So, yep, that's all for Big Bang Pegasus. It's a fairly straightforward one, so great for us. Now we have Fang Leone, Fortress, Rise Dash. Okay, so Fang Leone, obviously this should be in. I mean, I don't imagine this wouldn't be one of the 4 Seasons bays, so yeah. Fortress, I just feel like Fortress works pretty well for a kind of Fang Leone remake. I mean, just look at them. Come on. This would be the disc that they would have to use if they used like a DB disc. Okay, Rise Dash. So again, just making a dash driver here out of Rise because why not at this point? It's not a perfect W2D remake at all. But what else is there? I mean, you could kind of see where I'm getting this from. Like, it's something. Is there anything else for W2D? Maybe Wave, but I feel like Wave's also awkward. I think I might just be thinking of Wave because they both have Wave in their names, Wave and Wave Wide Defense, so I don't know, to me, Rise just works the best for this one, and yeah, just another kind of relatively normal remake. Alright, now we have Mercury Anubis, Tapered Assault Dash. Okay, obviously Mercury Anubis is not a 4D bay, I know this. However, it's also a legendary bay, and it is in 4D, and I figured it's kind of a weird one, but I'm just going to throw it in anyway. I mean, it's a legendary bay. I'm just doing all the legendary bays, so it had to be in there. It would kind of be the same as the Metal Fed Explosion bays with how they're kind of made. So there's no, separating of the metal wheel. However, it would be DB disc compatible, so that is the main difference. It'd be using tapered. Why tapered? Basically, this thing, it like to scrape, so you can probably see where I'm getting this from. Anyway, Assault Dash, so just pretend this is a dash driver. Assault Dash, I think this is the widest plastic flat we really have from Burst, so I'm like, it's close enough. Tapered, it might scrape as well, so you know what? If it scrapes and we have a somewhat fast bay that has no stamina, I think that's a good Mercury Anubis remake. And yeah, aside from that, yeah, this is definitely kind of an awkward one because, again, not a 4D bay technically, but if we just make it DB disc compatible, it works well enough. Alright, now we have L-Drago Destroy, Karma, Reverse Reboot Dash. Okay, I gotta explain this one. So obviously L-Drago Destroy, a very sensible remake. It's another L-Drago, it's a 4 seasons bay. Obviously it was gonna happen. Now, aside from that, the layer itself, this is another odd one. It'd just be a 2-part layer. It'd just be kind of similar to Meteo L-Drago in that sense, where, yeah, it's a 2-part layer. They're not cross-compatible with anything, but it is what it is. It's just for the mode change. However, this time around, the top part would be the part that has the metal, as this does. So it would be a little bit awkward in that sense, but yeah. Also DB disc compatible, and I picked Karma. Again, I just feel like there's a lot of parallels between L-Drago and Longinus. I think most people can see that, so I felt using Longinus's disc made sense here. Also, I chose Reverse Reboot Dash. What the hell is that? Okay. So in my last part, I basically went on this whole mission to make a bunch of reboot variants because I didn't want G-Revolution to be boring. So this time, well, I had one more. I did not want to use Generate or make a new Generate variant to be DB compatible, and I just always thought it was unnecessary. So how about this time we just have a reboot that has the functions inverted, which honestly shouldn't be overly hard to do. Maybe if we're at it, we could also, mold this part to be a little sharper as well. That'd be nice. So that'd be slightly modified, and then, yeah, the functions are just inverted. I don't know, maybe it could make an ultimate reboot thing where it's also just a little bit different stylistically, like the plastic around it. So yeah, that's how I'd handle Final Survive. I think it just makes the most sense to just invert the functions and alter that bottom part a little bit rather than use a Generate, because Generate, no. So, yeah, there you go. That's my workaround for Longinus. Hopefully it makes enough sense. And it just follows what I was already doing last part anyway. Alright, now we have Scythe Kronos, Load, Mobius Dash. Which I did not take off the bit. There we go, Mobius Dash. Okay. So, Scythe Kronos, it's a legendary bay. It's a planetary bay. Why not? Probably one they wouldn't make initially, but again, if we're making these lines have about 10 bays roughly, might as well have this one. Again, we're still on the legendary bays. Load, this is a disc that I basically made to replace Karma on Gatling Dragon back in part 6. Think it's sort of like a DB version of Sting, but it's all metal, so it doesn't have like the plastic or the gimmick, it's just kind of the same shape. I did that basically to replicate T125, so anyway. As far as Mobius goes, well, Mobius Dash, because, why not make it a dash driver, but yeah. So, I didn't feel like Mobius worked for a DS replacement, but listen, we're not getting anywhere with EDS. This is the closest we're getting to EDS, so I figured yeah, this is going to have to do. So, Scythe Kronos, another awkward one to remake, but again, did what I could here. Also, I will say that I do think that this free spinning piece would actually be pretty cool with in like a burst system, because it'd be plastic on like plastic contact points. Maybe that's just me, but I don't know. I feel like that'd actually be kind of cool, honestly. Alright, now we have VariAres Nexus Zeta Dash. Alright, so this one. Another weird layer. Again, this one's kind of a weird bait, but I could honestly see them making this if they were to like choose like one planetary bait to use. This is probably the one, because I mean, it has like a 4D drive. So this layer, it'd have to be one piece. There's no switching modes, you know, taking it apart. No, no, it's just one big piece. It would also be DB compatible. However, it might actually be compatible with only a select few DB discs, because I think that the metal here, not really the metal, like the contact points would hang down further. It'd just be a very thick layer. So it might actually partially cover up the disc. So in that sense, I do think that this one might not be compatible with certain things like, I don't know, Moon. But because it's a remake, I don't really care too much about that. It's just trying to make the Bay as good as it can be. So I chose Nexus because it's a fairly small DB disc, and I think that makes the most sense. And then Zeta Dash, I mean, come on. It's very, very similar to Delta Drive. I mean, like, they're both in the ball mode, so like they're very similar. So obviously we're using Zeta Dash for this thing. So yeah, this is, I think, the last of the really weird ones. So from here on out, we're getting just more combos, and we don't have to worry about any layer oddities. So that's pretty nice. Now we have Jade Jupiter, Spread Dash, Bite Dash. Alright. Jade Jupiter, another legendary bay. It's a planetary one again, so maybe not the most likely of them, but if they did all the legend bays, this one makes sense. I guess it also has like more of a gimmick with like the metal balls, which is really cool as well. Aside from that, Spread Dash, it's just kind of a round disc that I felt like worked, especially with like S130. Unfortunately, not plastic, because again, DB discs, you can't really do that with, unless if I did BU discs, which I could have done, but that just felt kind of awkward, honestly. And then also they're trying to account for the track, and the plastics aren't going to match. It's an issue. I just went with DB discs instead. Anyway, Bite Dash, I mean, rubber ball, like, it's the best we're getting here, so it made the most sense. So again, just a pretty self-explanatory remake overall, I think, anyway. Alright, now we have Phantom Orion Overbearing Dash. This is not a surprise at all. Phantom Orion, 4 Seasons Bay, Legend Bay. This would be one remake that they probably would have for sure done if they did 4D remakes. I mean, come on, it just works with Phantom. Like, it just does. And then, Bearing Dash. Obviously, this thing has Bearing Drive. Yeah, this is not a shock here. This is just exactly what would have happened if they made a Phantom Orion remake. Well, also assuming that they, you know, did DB discs and there wasn't anything new. So yeah, Over makes the most sense. Bearing Dash, obviously. And the layer, I mean, it'd just be kind of the layers that I already, you know, mentioned with how, you know, it's set up. So very, very self-explanatory combo right here. This one, yeah. Alright, now we have Death Quetzalcoatl, Legacy Zeal Dash. Alright, Death Quetzalcoatl, yeah, it's a planetary bay, another legend bay. You know, it's just one of those kind of oddballs that maybe they'd make, maybe they wouldn't make. Depends on how many 4D remakes they actually would do. Legacy, I don't know, I just felt like the way the metal wheel looks, I just felt like Legacy for some reason kind of worked with it, so I opted to go with it. A little bit of a weird choice, but again, I just felt like it made some sense. And then Zeal Dash, I mean, really isn't a great RDF replacement, so I figure, you know what, Zeal, you know, you're close enough, I would say. Not quite there, but it's the closest we're gonna get, so I figure. Also, just the way RDF looks, like the plastic on the outside, I feel like Zeal actually kind of does pretty well with that too. So you know what, good as we're gonna get. So yeah, nothing too crazy here, but Zeal Dash. I mean, that should have just been the driver on King Helios anyway, as I mentioned in part 6, but would be nice to get a reprint of that here as well on a Death Quetzalcoatl remake. Now we have Diablo Nemesis, Giga Trick Dash. Alright, Diablo Nemesis, obviously Legend Bay, and it's kind of like the main antagonist. This one they'd probably do if they did 4D bays. Giga, it just felt right, I don't know. This one just, something about Giga and Diablo Nemesis just kind of clicked. Trick Dash, obviously, it's like the closest we really have to Extreme Dash, so... Or Extreme Drive, I mean, so... Yeah. Not the best, but again, it's something. So, Diablo Nemesis, I imagine it would have Trick. The disc, whatever, but for some reason Giga just felt right for me, so... Well, with that, and yeah, again, just a fairly standard remake with nothing too crazy here. And finally, Flash Sagittario, Illegal High-Yielding Dash. Alright, Flash Sagittario, this one's like one that, if you're kind of on the edge, like if they just made a few 4D remakes, this one could be there, or it could not be. I mean, it's kind of a replacement for the a Four Seasons Bay, so it depends on how you want to do that. It became a Legend Bay like very late, so maybe, maybe not. Illegal, I don't know, I feel like Illegal kind of worked here, personally. I mean, it's a stamina base, so why not? A high yielding dash, I type out this one with Byxis, it just works for a 230 WD type of thing, so... Yeah, there you go. And also, I guess with the roundness of 230, Illegal also kind of helps with that too, so yeah. Just a pretty sensible Flash Sagittario remake, I would say, and that's all for the bays. And that's it. Okay, I did not realize this video was going to actually be as problematic as it was. This took me a long time to record, a couple hours, and also I had to tear apart my entire collection to get all these bays out, because there was a lot of parts from early burst, a lot of like DB stuff. Also, I had to go through my Metal Fight stuff. There was a lot of stuff. This took me like a half hour to set up, and I have to put them all away. That's gonna suck. This part was not fun for me to make, but I'm glad it's actually made now, so that's cool. It was fun to like write these combos out, but yeah, making the video itself, it was something else. So anyways, yeah, that's basically everything. Those are my Metal Fight remake ideas, I guess you could say. How I changed the current ones and which ones I would add in. I did add a lot in here, so that was something. Basically doubled the lines for seasons 1 and 2, then, you know, did all the 4D bays since I didn't get to them. So that, yeah, I'm done for now with reimagining. There will be a couple more parts, but that's still a while away, so we'll worry about those then. I'll just leave those as a kind of surprise for now, I guess, since there are 2 more parts to go. Part 13 is kind of funny, and then part 14 will be the end of everything, so yeah. So that, again, those are all the Metal Fight remake changes, additions I have, so yeah. Thanks for watching, and bye-bye.